Okay, so I wanted to make another video on how to get out of loop lock. That was a huge issue when I first started, on how to arrange a song into a song. And I've seen a ton of videos on how to do this, and there's no one right way to do this. This is the way I do it. It's worked very well for me. And I saw another person have something very similar to this, and I kind of adopted it for my own purposes, and it works very well. So here's what I started with. I'm going to turn off my plugins here, solo the track, and I'm in Reaper. So here's what the sample sounded like before I added any movement to it. So it's just basically a lush pad, and if you've worked with lush pads before, you know that they can be kind of tricky as using them as sound beds. But what I have started to do with lush pads is, and the reason I got the movement plugin was because I wanted to add movement to it. And I throw on a little room, Native Instruments. It is a reverb, and here is the movement plugin from Output. It's a great little plugin. So I switched this from, this one was a quarter, but this one was an eighth, and I switched that to a quarter. Basically, I'm using saw pumper. And I think it adds a real subtle pumping sound to it. And I got this sample. This is my Media Explorer over here. I got it from Big Fish Audio, Ambient Skyline. And these are some CDs that I've downloaded. I had CDs from years ago that I have collected over the years, and so that's what I'm using. And it's under Atmospheres, and it's amber. It's in C major. But I didn't think that this was enough to create a song with, so I went ahead and added this bed underneath, and this is Beach C major. I went ahead and added this underneath. But again, I liked that, but I wanted to give it some movement. So again, I added movement. And I have a few of these plugins, but on this particular loop, I went ahead and used movement. Now here's the beach loop. And I did driving pulse on this. But if you notice, these are at 16th, so it has a different tonality and rhythm, different beat than the first one. Same reverb. I kept the same reverb, Cosmic Keys, so they matched up in that regard. And that's a really good starting point. And I panned beach to the right, 20%. And amber, I know it says beach, but it's not. It's amber. And I like to match whatever I do on the left, I want to do on the right. So 20%. 20%. And I thought, okay, we can get started with that. That's pretty good. So then I was looking for, this is just crying out for a bass. So I went ahead and I got Massive. We don't need this. I had a pumper on it and it didn't work. And this is Replica, and it's a subtle delay that I put on my bass. And I like to put a little subtle delay on the bass, sometimes a reverb, It just opens it up a smidge, but if you do too much, then it overpowers. Especially in that low end, you can really muddy up your track if you have too much. So we'll turn these, well, not massive off. And again, I'm using just Digital City. I have a ton of presets. Deep House Bass 2. We'll put on Replica. Shut this down, and then I added the bass. Because my pad bed is so relaxed, you can come in with a little bit more complicated bass line. And they complement each other. If your chord progression is pretty complicated, you probably want to ease off on the bass, because then you're pulling the listener's ear in too many directions. Now that turnaround, I'm not married to it. I'm not married to these flourishes. This is just a basic quickie arrangement tutorial. So after I added the bass, I found these drum loops, which I'm gonna have to add some flourishes to it. And I'll show you that in part 2, possibly part 3. But that was just the drum loops here, 65. And that was part of the CD as well. But these drums were a little thin, so I went ahead and I added the bottom end. And so that's a good start. That's a good start to get a track going. And if you notice, all these loops and my bass line and you'll hear my lead sounds. I have 2 separate lead sounds here. Again, with different rhythms, different patterns to complement each other and to make it interesting. 16 bars. I don't do 9 bars, and I certainly don't do 4 bars. I just, while I'm writing, or I'm finding loops, or I'm creating 16 bars. And here's why. So I take that loop, let's escape from that loop, and then right mouse click and highlight all my loop lengths, and I just do a Control D, 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 D. And if you notice, that takes us to about 6 minutes. And I don't like to go over 5 too much, unless you really want to do an epic tune. That's your call. I don't like to go over 5. I like to keep people listening to it several times rather than, having it really long. I'd rather it end and they're like, oh, I want to hear that again. Yeah, you do. So there you go. All right, so we know that our intro is going to be, I like to have 16 bar intros, 8 bar intros. I say 9 and 17 because that's where it ends, here and here, because we don't start at 0, we start at 1. But what I do is, we know we're not going to load up all the instruments, so we can get rid of the bass and the drums. And then I have to decide which one I'm going to start with here. I mean, you can start with your drums if that's what you want to do. I've started many a tune with the drums, but in this particular one, I really like that lush bed. So I'm going to get rid of the dominating sound And I'm probably going to do, I'm actually going to do beach, and I'm going to take off movement. I'm going to leave the reverb on, but I'm going to start with this one. So I'm going to delete that. And let's just see how that sounds. Yeah, that sounds awful. So I'm not going to do that. I'm going to switch it. And that's what you have to decide, you know. There, like I said, there's no right way to do this. This is the way I do it. So here's my intro. And I think I'm going to turn that plug I'm back on and see how that sounds. See, that's what I wanted. That's just lush, you know, and this is going to be a downbeat track, but it's going to have an upbeat feel because this is in C major, and C major is always a little upbeat. Most often, you can make it a little gloomy. And then I think I'm going to do my bass as well. But I think I'm going to start the bass like that. But I'm going to get rid of that flourish. Actually, I'm going to leave that in. I'm having a hard time seeing here. Zoom in. Okay. And at the halfway mark, so we're going to have 8 bars of bass before we get to the drums. And then I'm going to drop out the fat drums. Take off the solo. And then I'm going to add the drums here. And let's see how that sounds as an intro. Oh, we have to mute. That's the lead sounds. We'll bring those in a minute. See, I think that sounds great. That works very well. And again, this is just rudimentary arrangement. Okay, that works. Another trick I like is okay, so I want to pop this area here where the drums come in. So let's zoom in on that. And let's add a dropout. Okay. Now I could slice these and drop them out as well, but I think we'll be okay just dropping out these instruments, and then we can blend our drums back together. And then I'm probably going to do, here's another 32 bars. So let's figure out where the breakdown is going to be. So we have our intro. Then I usually go 32 bars. And so here's where my breakdown would be. And I think I'm going to reverse what I did in the intro. So I opened with this one, but I'm going to open with this pad, the beach, instead of amber. Let's change that. Amber. Okay, so this is going to be my breakdown here. So I probably am going to drop out the entry drums, the intro drums, and I'll lead in with the bass into the breakdown, but I will drop it for 4 bars, or 8 bars, excuse me. And we'll hear how that sounds. And that's when I'll probably bring in, about here, I will probably bring in my lead sounds. But let's see how this, when we introduce these drums, let's see how that sounds here. That works. That's going to work too. And I'm going to do one here too. I know I'm going to want to do one here. And this time, I'm going to probably drop out the amber pad. And this will be my outro. Okay, so we're coming up on the breakdown. And I'm probably going to be playing Okay, and I'm going to put a pause here. And I'm going to drop everything out right before I go back into it. So I like those pauses. They add a little bit of drama to it. But you can overdo it, and I might be overdoing it. Okay, but here's the biggest thing, right? We are officially out of loop lock. Okay, now this seems really rudimentary and this seems really, really simple because it is. But instead of it thinking of it as an empty space, you're in C major, you know you're in C major, so now you can create lead sounds. There is going to be, I love arpeggiators, so I'm probably going to add a simple arpeggiator to this. I'm probably going to go get some Vox sounds or some vocal chops that I may add to this and reverb and delay those. And so you basically have a rudimentary starting point. And we can go from there. And that's what we're going to do. So that is how I get out of loop lock. I just take my loop and then I just extend it out into a song and then I listen to it. But the takeaway is the reason you're able to stretch this out is because you have 16 bars of music to begin with. So really force yourself to come up with a good, solid 16 bars of a loop that is interesting. But that's the reason why 16 bars works. You can stretch it out, and it becomes a blank canvas once you have this rudimentary layout. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to continue on with this, and you'll see how I make it a full-blown track. Okay, so until the next one, part 2's coming. All right. Hey, and leave in the comments if you are digging what we're doing here. If you have any questions or suggestions, I am all ears. So, all right. Thanks for watching. Hope you learned something, and we'll see you in the next one. All right. Take care.